The GOP proposes a bill to protect Mount Rushmore. And I want to talk about this because, and this is an article at Fox News, it's something that is right in line with what we talk about here on the channel, anti-censorship. This also happens to be an issue in my backyard. I'm about 3 hours away from Mount Rushmore. In fact, Mount Rushmore and Crazy Horse, those two monuments are within proximity of each other. But this is an article by Peter Kasperowicz. This came out today. Last name Kasperowicz, and I take it that his last name is probably Polish. So he knows all about the elimination of monuments and statues, ethnic cleansing. Sure, he probably has some Polish relatives that lived during World War II under the Third Reich. The title of the article here, GOP moves to protect Mount Rushmore from activists looking to rename it or tear it down. Representative Dusty Johnson's bill says monument represents democracy, freedom, and the great American experiment, which is exactly how our founders saw this thing called the United States. They didn't think it would last. In 1794, in the halls of Congress, they were talking about secession. But we don't live really in a democracy. We're in a federal republic. Constitutional, that's what we live in, is a federal republic. Because a true democracy means that the minority does not have a voice. But the article starts out, House Republicans this week proposed legislation aimed at protecting Mount Rushmore from being altered, renamed, or demolished by activists who say the monument disrespects Native Americans. The Mount Rushmore Protection Act, as it's known, would prohibit the use of federal funds to change, destroy, or rename the Mount Rushmore National Memorial. And I totally agree with this. Because a mob should not be deciding what stays up or what comes down. SJWs. That should be left up to a vote. Not to the federal government, but to the state, to your local community, to you, the citizen, of whether or not you want to keep that monument, that flag, whatever the statue is, up or take it down. The bill from Representative Dusty Johnson, Republican of South Dakota, is a response to criticism that has grown since former President Donald Trump visited the site in 2020. You see where this is going with these activists? It's all Trump's fault. Quote, our nation's history is not without its flaws, but there is no doubt the faces of Mount Rushmore represent democracy, freedom, and the great American experiment. But again, we don't live in a democracy. This is a federal or constitutional republic. He also said removing or changing Mount Rushmore will not change the past and will not move us forward as a country. Exactly. You can take down as many statues, as many flags, as many monuments as you want. It's not going to change what happened in World War II in Germany. It's not going to change what happened with Wounded Knee. It's not going to change what happened during the Civil War. We must protect Mount Rushmore for generations to come. Exactly. Thank you. Amen. Way to go, Dusty Johnson. Standing up to these idiots who want to take everything down they disagree with. Well, why don't we take down any Native American symbol or African symbol? Because Native American tribes, mentioned this before, they enslaved each other. It was often done as a spoil of war. They were able to take their slaves with them on the Trail of Tears, and I happen to be part Cherokee, Iroquois, German and Irish, from the generation, because I know a lot of people say that. No, I'm from the generation where our relatives from the early part of the 20th century, last part of the 19th century, early part of the 20th century, intermarried with Native Americans. If you were German or Irish, this was very common. You might have been Italian. This happened a lot in the South. So you might have an ancestor who was Seminole, Cherokee, Iroquois, whatever the tribe was. Opposition to the famous memorial was stoked after Trump's visit. Once again, it's all Trump's fault. Which led to complaints from Native Americans that the monument is built on sacred land in the Black Hills that was taken from the once gold was discovered. Well, who lived here before the Native Americans? Nobody's asking that question. We know that tribal warfare was going on before any European stepped foot on the North American continent. And in fact, if you go back, and archaeologists are starting to discover this now, you go back about 20,000 years, it's believed that the Asians, and actually Native Americans are of Asian descent, come from Central Asia. They're avoiding famine or trying to flee from famine and warfare at the time. But it's believed that you had Asians that were coming to this part of the world, but they didn't stay very long. And guess what? They may have brought their slaves with them. Yes, there was slavery in ancient China. You got to remember that at that time, China had all these different dynasties. It was a vast empire, covered a lot of land. Actually, the Japanese come from mainland China. One citizen of a South Dakota tribe told Voice of America in 2020 that Mount Rushmore is, quote, a symbol of ethnic cleansing, forced assimilation, and the theft of our territory. Well, I can make the same argument being Irish. I mean, look what the British did to the Irish. And a lot of people argue, well, the Irish did that to themselves. But look what happened in Ireland and Scotland. This conflict, and you still have that conflict going on today between Britain, Northern Ireland. And the Trump's visit was getting back to the article, and that Trump's visit was a reminder of the, quote, continuing genocide of our people. I don't know any Native American who has been killed in my neck of the woods by a white man. I mean, you may have had some type of gang activity where it may have been one member of one gang going against another member of another gang, and one happened to be white, someone might have been Native American. But I don't know of any, I haven't seen any articles in my neck of the woods, and this has a good-sized Native population. Haven't seen one article where you had this conflict between someone who was white and someone who was Native American. If I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comment section below. I love pointing this stuff out to people, the hypocrisy of these people, the inaccuracy of these people. Did you have mistreatment of Native Americans? Yes, you did. You also had mistreatment of the Irish, of the Italians, of the Chinese, Hispanics. Unfortunately, it's a part of human history. It's a part of American culture, and it's not new to America. These conflicts were going on in Europe between these different groups. I mean, hell, they called the Czechs just happy peasants, happy dancing peasants. They wouldn't take Dvorak seriously. They thought that Dvorak could not write a piano concerto, and he did. They didn't think he could write a cello concerto or a symphony, and he did. And opera, as did Bedřich Smetana, and these other Czech composers, which actually back in the 18th century, composers from Prague were the most prominent compared to German or Italian. Although Italian opera was the dominant music form at the time, although they were very expensive to produce, these Italian operas. Also last year, former NBA player, once again getting back to the article, NBA player Jalen Rose called on people to retire the term Mount Rushmore because the monument sits on land that was, quote, stolen when it was discovered that it contained gold. Now, Dusty Johnson's bill finds that the memorial is, quote, America's shrine of democracy. See, I can't stand this. They do the same thing with the U.S. Capitol. They call the U.S. Capitol a shrine. They call Mount Rushmore a shrine. It is not a shrine. It is a monument, a memorial. U.S. Capitol is a government building. It is not a shrine, a cathedral. But this combines the images of former Presidents George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Theodore Roosevelt, and Abraham Lincoln with the beauty of the Black Hills of South Dakota. It is some of the most beautiful parts of this country that you will see. The Black Hills. South Dakota is a beautiful state, it really is. Aside from barring any changes to the memorial, the bill would also require that any reference to the site on maps and other documents must refer to Mount Rushmore. Exactly. Keep it up. Stop trying to take all these monuments down. And they've got a picture of Mount Rushmore here. And Donald Trump, this is great. Donald Trump is in the front of Mount Rushmore and he's smiling. That's too funny. President Donald Trump smiles at Mount Rushmore National Memorial near Keystone, South Dakota on July 3rd. Actually, Mount Rushmore is in Keystone. Republicans supporting the bill so far are Representatives Michael Guest of Mississippi, Alex Moody of West Virginia, Doug LaMalfa of California, Jim Banks of Indiana, Nancy Mace of South Carolina, Chris Stewart of Utah, Troy Nehls of Texas, Claudia Tenney of New York, and, hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Amata Coleman Radwagen, oh, that's a name for you, the delegate from American Samoa. So we have someone who's a minority supporting the keeping up of the Mount Rushmore Memorial, of this monument. Last week, the Biden administration announced it would again prohibit any display of fireworks at the memorial for the third year in a row. Okay, well, guess what? We'll decide in this state whether or not we want to have fireworks at Mount Rushmore. Not you, President Biden. This isn't your state. You are not the governor of 50 states. You might be the president of the United States, but you are not the governor of this state. So butt the you-know-what out. I try to keep this a family show. So I thought I'd share this article with you at Fox News. Thank you for letting me work my way through this again. Another one-take video. The GOP is proposing a bill to protect Mount Rushmore. I say, way to go, GOP, something you've actually done right. And you know my views on Republicans and Democrats. So if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. You can also follow me at Instagram, #JasonComposes, or go to Twitter, Culture Confederacy at Twitter. You know how we do it here? This is where the past crashes with the present. Culture Confederacy saying peace out, stay safe, everybody. God bless this thing we call the United States, and I'll catch you next time.